We are thrilled to be here.
This is Gary Temple Bodley. Well, kind of.
You're going to have to be ready to do one thing. Forget everything you've ever heard, everything you've ever learned, and start with a new idea of what it is to live in physical reality.
Actually, it's Gary channeling a group of non-physical beings collectively known as Joshua. Sound far out? It was a bit for me too, but my wife Julie had recently been studying and practicing some of these things that Joshua had been dictating through Gary, and it was making quite a noticeable difference in her life.
Oh my gosh, I think I was pregnant with Freya, and I was just kind of depressed. And it was just like a lot, and I just knew that I was thinking negatively all the time, and I needed to do something. Because I used to be like so outgoing, and my nickname was Julie Ray of Sunshine, and I was nothing. I was not Julie Ray of Sunshine. I was just like moping around and just, well, the reason why I'm such a big fan of Joshua is because every single day I wake up, the moment I open my eyes, I'm just grateful for being like, just existing. Like, I'm like excited for the day, because whatever happens, and I say this all the time to you, is happening for me. And this is a concept. Once you can get this in your head, because then nothing's ever bad. Nothing. There is no bad. You just change your mindset and you look at everything different. Amazing. A gift. It's a beautiful. It's a journey. It's an experience. It's fucking fun as shit. It's funny. Like, if you can change your outlook to that, which is what they basically teach you. Like, we're all just here and you're just supposed to experience life, and whatever your journey is going to unfold, it'll be, and it's all working out for you and all unfold the way for you. You know, let go of expectations, and you just ride the wave. That's pretty fun.
Intriguing for sure. So when the opportunity arose to find out more about the teachings of Joshua during a retreat event in Las Vegas, I grabbed my camera gear and we boarded a flight to Sin City. Over the next 4 days, around 35 participants would explore these various teachings and themes. And after a first night of introductions, friend reunions, and several glasses of wine, we headed to bed to begin our first full day of workshops and conversations. Like many spiritual practices and philosophies, meditation is the cornerstone that everything is built upon. Each morning began with a recorded, guided meditation, which utilizes teachings and affirmations by Joshua.
You control the thoughts you think, so you can control how you feel in every moment. Life is meant to be good. Life is meant to be joyous. If you would like to experience more joy, you must approach life from a new direction. There is another approach to life. There is a way for you to live easily and without stress. This is the non-resistant approach to life. This is the approach of receiving.
Speaking of meditation, and before we dive further into the actual teachings of Joshua, let's take a quick trip back to the beginning and find out how this all started.
In 2013, say the summer, I had been hearing about people meditating a lot and had this feeling that I should be meditating for some reason. And I was very resistant to meditate. But then I heard that Jerry Seinfeld meditated, and a whole bunch of people that I didn't realize were doing it were meditating. So I said, well, let's just try this and see what it is. So we sat down, we started meditating, and it was very hard at the beginning. It took, 2 or 3 weeks before we could go more than 5 minutes. But soon enough, we were meditating for 20 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day. And we were doing it consistently. And then, let's say September 2013, I started to feel something while I was meditating. And it was really obvious. It was as if a hand was inside my skin on my skull and jawbone, and it was moving around in there. Comforting, but strange, you know. And I thought, well, maybe this is something that happens while meditating. But I looked it up and couldn't find anything. And every time I meditated, it started again. And when I finished meditating, it left. And it really seemed like a presence was with me. It was, I don't know, it's even talking about it seems strange right now. And it lasted 18 months. But in the beginning, I just thought it was a presence. And so I started asking it questions, just as if you were in the hot seat asking Abraham questions. So I was asking it questions, and I was getting these answers back like this. And the answers seemed so much like what Abraham would have said, but more specific, which is something I was really interested in. And we were getting, this is every single day was happening. And I was answering questions or asking questions, getting answers, and it was really fun. And one day I just said, who is this? And immediately got back Joshua. That changed everything. Because now it wasn't just my own thoughts coming back to me. It really seemed like it was some other entity. And this in case was entities. And then, this just kept going. I didn't really believe it, but it just kept going. And then on November 15th, 2013, during meditation, this clear signal came in and said, get up and write. And so I just got up, I went to my office, I closed the door, I sat at my computer, I opened Pages on my Mac, and I just started typing. And I really didn't know what I was typing. It seemed like gibberish when I was doing it, but I was just writing words. And it lasted maybe half an hour, as fast as I could do it. And there were tons of typos and stuff. But every word, verbatim, it was 3 pages typed, was the words that are in the first book. Those were the first pages of A Perception of Reality. Exactly as it was typed that first day. In fact, it's the first 3 pages, the introduction. So while I'm typing it, it seemed like it was nonsense, but then I read it back and it seemed like it was something completely new. So Deborah Jo and Frank happened to be coming for dinner that night. And we had this great fun dinner, and afterwards I gave Deborah Jo the 3 pages.
Gary and I have known each other for over 30 years, and we have family in common. So I knew him long before Joshua came along, and so we have just been friends throughout the whole journey. In fact, we were at dinner with Gary at Gary's house when he said, I want you to read something that I wrote. And he, at that point, was a little scared to tell anybody what was happening because he found it so unusual and it was all new to him. So he said, could you please read this? So I read it out loud, and the first sentence was, everything is right, there is no wrong in the universe. And I just got goosebumps when I was reading his words aloud.
And she reads them, and she's like, what is this? I go, I don't know what it is. It's something I just wrote today. It's not me. It's something else. It's Joshua.
And that's when he said, I've started channeling, and I'm channeling a group of non-physicals, and their name is Joshua, and I am writing every morning with 2 fingers, typing like crazy. And we were a couple that Gary could tell this to, and we liked it. So we didn't think it was weird at all. We thought it was we thought it was different, but we were so excited because we had been to Abraham-Hicks events with Gary before. And for this to be happening to somebody that we knew and loved, it was great for us.
I did a website. Some people started hearing about it, started sending in their questions, and the thing just went from there. And here we are 4.5 years later. There's 2 podcasts. There's events like we're at right now in Las Vegas. There's cruises. There's community built up around the world. It's It's unexplainable. The change from 4.5 years ago to now. It's like, where did this come from? It doesn't make any sense. And what it is a philosophy for life that is completely different than what we think reality is and life should be lived.
So let's now dive into that philosophy and find out exactly what is Joshua's message for humanity. Here again are the first lines from Gary's book and the main principle that all the other ones hang on. Everything is right. There is no wrong anywhere in the universe.
In the new approach to life, you have to accept that everything is right. And that's the hardest thing for all of us to do. Because we believe that some things are inherently bad and some things are inherently good. But that's not actually true. It's our perception of those things that dictates whether they're good or bad. We make it up in our head.
Everything is right means that my reaction to whatever it is can be my decision. So even though I don't realize the right in it right now, if my reaction is positive, it's going to turn out fine. And that's my phone.
So this is the first book of Perception of Reality. These are the first words that were ever written in the introduction. Everything is right. There is no wrong anywhere in the universe. Anything perceived as wrong is an illusion. It only seems wrong through the narrow perception of your physical reality. From the broader viewpoint, whether that's the perception of non-physical or the broader view of history, nothing is ever wrong. It is always, always right. Okay, first paragraph, first book ever. That's the starting and end point of this new approach to life.
Because obviously the first time if you say to somebody, what do you mean there's no wrong? What about child abuse or whatever? They bring up the worst thing they can think of. Well, knowing that we all come in with intentions and we all come in to experience things, that helps me understand and almost applaud those that go through that, because they've come in with some really intense emotions that they're working through, and they've put themselves in some pretty intense situations to expand, and they're expanding all of us. And so I try to look at that as from a point of gratitude, and then the difference between just accepting them. That doesn't mean I have to like it. It doesn't mean I have to do it. It doesn't mean I have to prefer that. It just means I accept that that's their thing, not my thing necessarily, but that's what they came here to explore, and I'm going to allow that to happen.
In duality, we say we're a victim and things are either good or bad. And we're a victim to the bad, and we're trying to latch onto the good. In this new approach to life, we say everything is right. It may not be right for me, but I'm not going to take that experience away from you. See, I understand that you, like me, are a spirit experiencing a physical reality. And your experience of reality is different than mine. What you came here to explore is different than what I came here to explore. And your experience is as valid as I am. So I'm not going to change things to take away what you can experience. And even if I perceive it's wrong from my viewpoint, well, it might be something very beneficial for you to experience.
I can say it in my head, nothing's wrong, everything's right. To living it day in and day out, it's challenging. But I actually look at all the challenges when I can sit down and say, wow, this situation, here's how I should look at it. What about from this standpoint? What about from this opportunity? And I think opportunities is important. We want to make it right. Our parents told us how to be right. Our school teachers told us how to be right and proper. And to know that there's no really right and wrong, whatever I choose is right for me, for my opportunity, for my path, then so be.
How could there be no wrong? It's so obvious that there's wrong. There's wrong everywhere, right? How could there be no wrong? And we say, from a different perspective, from a perspective so high, from a perspective that you'll have to suspend your belief, there is no wrong. From a perspective of eons of time, was it wrong when the meteor hit and killed life on this planet in a magnitude that had never been seen before? Well, if it wasn't for that, you'd not be here now. This building would not be here. So if you take the perspective of billions of years, it's a little bit softer, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. When that idea gets brought up, there are a lot of people that want to bring on these really sensitive issues that feel very black or white. And so I can understand the struggle with that. And I've spent a lot of time, for me, deciding what's true and how I feel about it. I don't expect anybody else to agree. But yeah, I've reached a point where it makes sense to me in the very broadest sense. Most of these concepts make sense, are the easiest for me to digest when I'm zooming way out, when I'm looking at humanity as a whole, look at all of this as being a blip on the timeline. So in that sense, yes, I can see how war could be sometimes right, sometimes I can't make it all the way to right, okay, or I can get to neutral about it. That's something that we were just talking about in the roundtable. I can get to a place where I can accept that it's a thing that's happening and that most things I don't have any real power over. And if there's something that I do feel like needs to change, first I look at why I think it needs to change, and then I look at what it is that I actually want that's underneath all of that. So I'm not trying to change something, I'm just inspired to create whatever it is that I would prefer to see.
When you consider the phrase that there is no wrong in the universe, the first instinct is to find all the things that are wrong in the universe and to challenge that concept. But from a theoretical perspective, it's incredibly empowering to realize that there is no wrong in the universe, because what that means is just the energy of the moment, the way things are in that moment has just been brought on by your vibration. It's just the vibrational match to everything in a perfect alignment. So this is an empowering perspective rather than a limiting perspective.
Somebody who might look at a challenge as being very big, another person would see it as very small. And it's just how you look at the challenges.
From a higher perspective, imagine this. Imagine that life is a blink of an eye, that you exist for eternity and non-physical. And then you say, we're going to buy a ticket and come to Disneyland, and we're going to experience the rides. And when you first go to Disneyland, when you're a little kid, you're not riding the Matterhorn, you're not riding the scary rides, you're riding the teacups and the small world, right? But soon you get bored of that as you grow older, as you have experience. Mm-hmm. And so now you start riding the scary rides. But you don't want to say that nobody can ride the scary rides and everyone has to ride the teacups in the small world, right? You want to say, you bought your ticket, explore whatever you want to explore. And then some of you will come in here and say, we're going to get together, we're going to experience something in order to help grow the vibration of this planet and the consciousness, the mass consciousness of this community, of this building to just down here. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Of nightclubs in Florida. We're gonna volunteer to be in these situations that seem horrible, because in those situations you can't imagine the love that comes out of that. You can't see it really, but maybe you can perceive it. So in things that are horrible, there's always love in those things.
The first book Joshua told me to read was A Radical Change, and that was because I was such a control freak and I had such a perceived idea how things should be. They wanted me to flip that around. And it would radically change. If I looked at something as being big, I needed to look at it as being small. Just like change everything I had. And that was really, it was hard to read. I mean, I had to read it very slowly and really digest it because I had so much momentum going in the area of control.
Don't you see the benefit of the terrorists?
Yeah.
The terrorists teach you that you cannot control the outside conditions. This whole thing is about allowing the conditions to be as they are. You could take a preference and your preference is you would prefer to live in a world without terrorism. That seems totally reasonable. We totally agree. In a world of love, there would be no terrorism. Well, there'd be a lot of things that there would not be any of. In a world of love, there'd be no fear. In a world without fear, there'd be no contrast. In a world without contrast, there'd be no desires. Oh, you're talking about the non-physical. Right? In the physical, there's all these different things coming on, and you get to participate in whatever you want, right? And so you choose, I'll participate in this, this, and this, and leave the rest to everyone else. That rest is not wrong, because if you could say, let's get rid of this little part that I don't like, you would never stop. You would go more and more and more until everything was eliminated, and you'd be standing alone in a sea of nothingness, because there'd be nothing to be afraid of. That's the old approach to life, trying to control everything so that you feel good. You see a person acting or behaving some way, and you have an opinion on that. And the opinion is, he's either behaving well or not. And if he's behaving well, you feel good, there's no fear. If he's behaving poorly, you feel bad. Take your children. If your kids are behaving themselves, you feel good. If they're unruly, you feel bad. So you assume that the kids are making you feel something. So you want to control their behavior so you don't feel it. That's the old approach to life. That's the approach of control. And in that approach of control, you are a victim. You're a victim to their behavior. You're a victim. Now you can control your kids to a certain degree for a certain amount of time, but you can't really control your mate. You can't control strangers. You can't control the government. You can't control terrorists. You can't control any of that stuff. All you can do is control how you feel about it. In the old approach to life, you're trying to control as much as possible. In the new approach to life, you realize that control can't work.
Let go of control. Let go of changing conditions. I think that is, for me, been really, really important. I don't want people to behave the way they do because it makes me uncomfortable. Well, get over it.
You chose to do the work. You chose to live in the new approach to life. That means you are no longer a victim to fate. That means that you accept your role as creator. And in the acceptance of that role, you acknowledge that you're going to feel fear. And in that fear, you're going to acknowledge that you're not going to succumb to it anymore. You're not going to blindly ask conditions to be different. You realize it's not them. It's not her. It's me. Okay? It's always me. Any negative emotion is always me. And I don't want you to be different. I don't want you to be different. I want to process that feeling. I don't want to feel that feeling anymore. That feeling's not helpful for me. It's limiting. It limits me from being the fullest version, extension of me that I intended to be as I came here. It's not as fun as acceptance. Acceptance is more fun. I understand that that's fear, but I don't have to succumb to it anymore. I can process it. And as you process it, you release all the energy you spend trying to create conditions, trying to control people, trying to make things happen so that you'll feel good, trying to bide your time until Christmas morning.
The main thing is to allow and to accept. That was huge for me, to just allow everybody and everything to be who they are and what they are.
What feels better is for me to be more okay with it, more accepting of it. And acceptance is love. And so as you accept the violence and all the things that you don't like, as you accept it as an experience for someone else that's valid for them and part of the experience of all, and you remove it from your attention from it, and you attract it less to you personally. Okay? And that's all this is. This is a universe of attraction. And you did not opt into that, so you can opt out of it. See, this is a universe based on the law of attraction. You attract to you. You attract to you. So everything that you attract is what you created. Now, this is an oversimplification of this idea. And it took me 4.5 years even to get an inkling of what what this is, what the new approach is. So there's a lot to it, and there's a lot to study. But generally speaking, since you attract to you, by fighting against the conditions that you don't like, you are putting your attention on that, and you're creating more of that. So in the new approach to life, you say, we're gonna accept the conditions as they are. We're gonna assume the conditions are perfect. We believe that we've created these conditions, so we're not gonna fight against what we created. We're gonna take the conditions as if it was a mirror to our vibration, which is exactly what it is. And so we see if there's turmoil in our conditions, it's because there's something in us that's creating this for some reason, for some purpose, for some benefit. And if we understand that these conditions exist that we may not like, we stop trying to control them. It's like controlling the image in the mirror, and we start thinking about how we're being. But you think that if you can control the conditions, then you'll feel better. And it's true to a certain extent. If you clean up your house, you'll feel better. The house is neat and clean, you'll feel better. If you dress nicely, you might feel better. You control those conditions to feel better. And so you extrapolate that towards everything else. But that can't ever work because it's an inside job. And so we say, we're not going to judge the conditions as wrong. We're gonna accept that we've attracted these conditions, and instead of seeing them as wrong, we're gonna accept them and accept that people is right. And we're gonna process our fear. See, it's our fear or our limiting beliefs that cause us to perceive that these conditions are wrong. And that's the new approach to life. Instead of asking the conditions to be good so we can feel good, we decide how we feel, and we decide how we choose to perceive the conditions. We choose our perspective. So if you look at anything you don't like, you can look at it from two perspectives. The limited perspective says that's wrong, but the higher perspective says that might be right. There might be something good in that perspective. In this condition that we see from a higher elevated perspective, we may think that things aren't working out right, but maybe they are. And we're trying to find out how they could be. Accepting everything, it all comes back to what? To acceptance. And acceptance is that which I think is wrong is my pathway to freedom.
Say that one more time.
That which I think is wrong is my pathway to freedom. And through the acceptance of that which I think is wrong, I unlock my divine ability, passion, path, access to freedom.
I get it.
Right? And so we don't ask people to change, we ask ourselves to think about what their behavior is doing, how it's causing us fear. So we're processing fear. So the old approach to life is asking for the conditions to be different, and the new approach to life is saying, we feel a fear, that fear is based on a limiting belief, let's address the limiting belief. And then when that thing pops up again, it won't cause this fear.
Allower is the opposite of resistance. It's very easy for me in the past to see a situation as wrong and tense up or be upset, not be happy, but now I just go with it and just flow and take a deep breath and allow it to be what it is, and allow myself to be the way I'm being, just allow people to be the way they are.
Because most of the time you can't change it anyway.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, you can't. You can only change how you respond to it.
It's really about shifting your perspective and knowing that everything is here to guide you to get to a next higher level of vibration. And even though it might not seem like it is, it is. And the more that you resist something, the more it persists.
Allowing other people to be who they are, just accepting that people are going to be people, and we can't change them. We can only change how we feel about them.
Are you trying to force or coerce some outcome that you think is good? Or are you trying to allow whatever is to be? And in that allowing state, you receive the inspiration, and whatever that is, is for the good of all, including you.
So being a allower doesn't mean a quitter, and I know you're not saying that.
No, but that's great.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you can't use some strong energy and like, I'm gonna get this shit done, and I'm gonna, And so what you do, you can move forward and not grind, but you can move forward towards something that you want. And then what I try to do is check in with myself. Am I being hard on myself? Am I being impatient? Do I think things need to be moving faster? Am I pushing? Am I trying to force things? And then as you let go and try to be a allower and just, okay, yeah, maybe I am. I can set back. Things start to happen, and you get these great ideas. So that building can be built even faster and better by being an allower. So it seems passive, but it's actually very powerful.
It's like the longer that you resist something, like, I don't know, it actually like causes your body. I feel like even if I, in the past, have ever resisted something, I feel like it shuts down my body. It keeps me from moving forward. It keeps me from, say, getting over an event that is really pretty petty. So just accepting, really turning resistance into acceptance is quite magical, and even in the terms of your perspective of seeing things.
You're all taken care of. You're supported by a loving universe that's designed to bring you everything you need when you need it, and everything you want when you want it. And if you will just relax, you will see how it comes. But if you try and make it happen in struggle and effort, well, then you're leaving aside joy. And so what's the point of that? What's the benefit of living a life when there's little joy? There's certain things you can't experience in the non-physical. You can't experience fear. You can't experience lack. All you can experience is, joy and abundance. You're eternal. You can't be afraid of anything because nothing can hurt you. In this reality, you are, brought in, and there are certain fears that you adopt because you have this survival instinct that says that you have to protect yourself in order to survive. If there's a lion in your living room, you want to get out of that living room. You want to change the conditions. In fear, you want to change conditions. In love, you accept the conditions. And in that acceptance, you're inspired to do the best thing for all. And that may have been well and good 100 years ago, 500 years ago. But now, in Western society, there's very little real threats that are happening on a daily basis. And you're in relative wealth here, no matter who you are, really, compared to most of the population 100 years ago. So what we're afraid of now, what we fear now, is really irrational because nothing's really going to harm us. So we tend to take that fear and extrapolate it onto things like what people think about us and, how people treat us and how much money we make and if we have a nice enough house and that sort of thing, if we have too many bills.
Fear feels like a scary feeling, like what if, or it's a lot of times it's a what if this happens, or what if I can't do this, what if I don't have enough money, what if.
We have a joke within the group, are you gonna die? And no, and if you push through that fear and you don't die, then yay, that's a big victory. So I try to look at things from a perspective of, okay, maybe go talk to this person or make this move or whatever. It's like, take the first step. I try to for me, when I break things down, it helps me work through it better. So if I take the first step of maybe pick up the phone, dial the number, just whatever the fear is or whatever's around, I just try to take it step one.
So there are only two emotions, love and fear. All positive emotions are based in love, and all negative emotions are based in fear. The negative emotions and the positive emotions are part of a guidance system. So imagine that you have part of you that exists in the non-physical, and we call that part of you the larger part of you, your inner self. And your inner self can see the big picture, can see who you are. Your inner self loves you and agrees with you whenever you're aligned with this higher perspective, that things are working out. Whenever you see reality as it really is, whenever you're having a good time with friends, or working on something you're passionate about, or enjoying life, or doing whatever. And when you think that things aren't going well, or that things are wrong, or someone's wrong, or things are bad, well, that's just you looking at life from a fear-based perspective. And whether that's jealousy or envy or regret or resentment or boredom or anxiety or worry, well, that's just your inner self saying you're looking at life based in this fear, and that fear is based on a limiting belief. Limiting belief you're not good enough. Limiting belief that you're not living an abundant life, that you don't have the ability to live an abundant life. All these limiting beliefs that you have, right? So the limiting beliefs get triggered by these conditions you think are wrong. And so when your limiting belief is triggered, you will feel fear. You'll be notified that you are looking at an illusion. It's not real. You're thinking things are going wrong, but they're really going perfectly fine. It just seems like they're going wrong. And so you worry and you project it out into the future and you go, oh my God, what's going to happen down the road? But in this moment, everything's fine. In this moment, in the vast majority of the moments of all of your life have been great, have been fine. In this moment, while you're watching this, everything's fine. There is nothing happening to you that's wrong. You may be worried about bills, or worried about your health, or worried about your love life, or worried about your weight, or worried about anything. But in this moment, there is nothing to worry about. Everything's fine. When you feel a fear, it's based on a limiting belief. Without the limiting belief, you couldn't feel the fear. So the fear always is an indication of the limiting belief. There's only two emotions, love and fear. Every beneficial belief you have is based on love. All of you have natural talents and abilities that will come out as you process limiting beliefs, so that the limiting belief becomes less limiting. You'll always have your limiting beliefs, always. But some are really intense right now, and some are really minor. And your work is to take those intense limiting beliefs and dial them down.
If I'm feeling, again, a negative emotion, limiting belief, some type of fear, I try to stop myself and figure out what the fear is. And then again, work myself through the emotional ladder, bring my vibration up, so then I can be a vibrational match to that new perspective that's more of a love perspective.
Love is for me more about just acceptance of what's happening around me, how I'm feeling. I'm getting more comfortable with the idea if I'm not feeling, if I am in fear, or if I am feeling in a way that I don't enjoy, how that's okay too. Mm-hmm. So love for me is more about accepting anything and everything around me.
I was raised that love with a capital L was what we were. That's where I come from. And I kind of lost track of that as I went through college and early life. And now I'm hearing it over and over. And Joshua is one of the strongest ones, that we are love, or God, and to express it, it's different than saying, I love you, honey. Of course I love you. But to feel love, to express it, is to express our authentic self, our real selves, our divine self. And I know that sounds heavy, but when you can feel it and exude it, it's gets you high.
So all the positive emotions are love, and all the negative emotions are fear. You could only have a negative emotion if you have a limiting belief. So really, the negative emotion, whatever it is an indication of a limiting belief. Because without that limiting belief, it would be impossible to feel that negative emotion. If you didn't believe that your mate was going to leave you because they're flirting with somebody, you could not get jealous. It would not be possible. You see people who aren't jealous because they're not worried about it. If you're jealous, it's because you have this belief that you could lose your mate to someone else, right? So what do you do about that? You rethink your limiting belief and you work on those things. So who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am?
Who the hell do you think you are?
No.
Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am?
Who do you think you are? Without the limiting beliefs that you have, who do you think you really are? In the non-physical, the authentic version of you exists. Who do you think that is?
Energy. Just
Pure positive love and energy. Magnificence. That's who you are. That's who everyone is as they exist in the non-physical. What's the difference between that version of you and this version of you in this chair? For me, I try to prove my worthiness by going to college, by making money, by building an empire, by having a nice house, by marrying a pretty wife, by having lots of friends and lots of things and lots of employees and trying to make myself look like I'm worthy to everyone else. I was trying to do this because I thought if I could make enough money, if I could get enough nice things, if I could get a nice house, if I can get all these things, if I can appear to be someone of worth to everyone else, then I would feel worthy myself. But that never happened because it can't happen that way. What proves you're good is that you're unique. No one has ever lived this expression of life in any way, shape, or form that's even remotely close to how you're living it. No one's ever had any of this before. And your experience of reality is a cornerstone of all human experience. And without your experience, in any way, shape you want to do it, because there is no wrong, it's impossible to be wrong, the whole system collapses. Okay? So you have to understand that just by being here proves you're worthy. Just by being unique proves you're worthy. Just by living life any way you choose proves you're worthy. So you don't have to prove that anymore. You can give that up.
Yeah.
Does anything mean anything about you?
No.
Nothing means anything about you.
No.
Does what you're wearing mean anything about you?
No.
Do you care what they think of you?
No.
Do you know that they love you?
Yes.
There's no longer the doubt about my value as a human being. And I don't have to prove that I'm valuable by having this or doing that, or this one liking me, or this one complimenting. None of that. It's like as the ego mind reduces, the love in my heart just expands, and the love for myself expands. So, I feel like it's like the opposite of an abyss. It's like my worthiness. I only know a glimpse of how magnificent I am, that I'll just keep discovering how amazing I am. And it's through these experiences, working through the fear and coming out the other side and feeling triumphant and feeling powerful and feeling worthy.
We do not judge each other. We see each other with eyes of love, and it makes a total difference in the way our lives are because we're not judging them, and in their lives because we're not judging them.
I used to be very judgmental of people, and not necessarily of a person, but more of people's behaviors. And now I see it as people are behaving in response or in the way based on what has happened to them or what they've experienced. So everything now just feels very lighthearted for me, very just kind of funny, or I just watch it more than judge it. And I can catch myself judging so much quicker now and just letting it go. And I really just enjoy watching people being themselves.
Allowing people to be who they are?
Yeah.
Somehow, this is for me. I can't see how it's for me because I understand that my perspective is limited. But somehow it's for me. I know that at some point I will understand how this was for me. I know that there is an experience, an expansive experience to be gained from this. And I came here for the expansive experiences of life.
If you say everything's for me, then it can influence the questions that I ask myself. So everything's for me, well then I can either ask, why is this happening to me? Which is a kind of a resistant question, disempowering question. Or I can say, well, how is this for me? That changes my whole approach. And so that kind of just living that way is super beneficial. And then it allows the ride to go smoother.
Because it can seem, in a lot of times, a lot of moments that when things don't go the way that I imagine them, that it's wrong because I want something different. And and that takes some practice. It took me some practice to really start, I wouldn't even say believing it, but practicing assuming that a situation is right, whether it be a time where I was sick, how it allows me to slow down and rest instead of push myself. Or if I didn't get a job, I found a better job or a job that I enjoy more. And so in the moment when something doesn't feel right, I just practice reminding myself, like, how can this be right, or what is right about this?
So in the past, I would freak out if something bad happened to me. And now that I know that everything happens for me, not to me, it's a whole different perspective. Knowing that it's for us, that makes all the difference in the world. We just have to figure out how it's for us. So that's the challenge. How is this for us?
And accept everything that it's for me. Everything is for me. I grew up in an environment where, it was cool, I guess, to be a victim. Oh, how could this happen to me? Kind of thing. Where now it's something, it's for me. How is this for me? How exciting. How can I be curious? How can I figure out what's going on here? And it's just a totally new perspective for me that has really made me have a happy life.
The idea of being a creator of my own reality, that for me was a very empowering idea. If I could find a way to look at all these things that were happening that I didn't understand, that I didn't like, and just begin to even play with the idea of imagining the possibilities of how it could possibly be actually for me, how it could be serving me, that was revolutionary for me, because I very much felt like a victim most of my life, but especially in that relationship that I was leaving at the time. I very much identify with that label. So the idea that all of this was happening for me, it was just a complete 180 from how I'd been looking at life up to that point. Like, this is all there is, I'm just gonna feel like shit for the rest of my life. And okay, I guess I'll just keep waking up but not really showing up, dreading getting out of bed every day. And so just the little act of, so it's it's an easy thing to just say, oh yeah, everything's happening for you, so why sweat anything? But being exposed to that idea was what was revolutionary, and then getting a chance to even just ask myself the question was a big shift for me. And then now being able to, having been just practicing it and playing with the idea for a while, now it's easy for me when something pops up, easier when something pops up to just automatically come up with all these ideas of why it could be happening, which helps me detach from, and not take things personally, and just assume that there's a reason that it's happening, and it's probably leading to something and there's so many times when I take that attitude and then look back and see that everything was like I thought it was, or maybe not exactly like I thought it was, but some other way that it all worked out to bring me to where I am now.
For somebody who's not used to the Joshua language yet, maybe they're just checking it out, what is a manifestation event?
Ooh, a manifestation event. That's awesome. That's anything that happens in your life. It could be a good thing. It could be perceived as a good thing. It could be perceived as a bad thing. It's like something happens. For instance, an example would be you show up to the hotel, or you come into the airport and you're ready to go on your vacation and your luggage doesn't show up. Well, that's a manifestation event, and you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it as, poor me, I don't have any clothes, what am I gonna do? Or, all right, why is this for me? How is this for me? Well, maybe you've been rushing, or maybe you haven't been paying attention to something. There's always a message in any manifestation event if you can take a moment and try to figure out what the message is. What's the universe trying to tell you?
So if something happens, my luggage didn't come in for this trip. And so now, because I've been practicing these teachings for over a year, I was like, okay, this is for me. I didn't know exactly how, but I thought, all right, I'm gonna suspend judgment. I'm not gonna give it a definite. I didn't go into any emotional despair or anything like that. And I looked to see, from a stance of curiosity, how is this going to play out? And what was really interesting is, all the people in the Joshua group gave me clothes and made phone calls for me because I was jet lagged and tired. When I was at all the way through the trip, people have been giving me gifts. And because I'm attentive to the good things that are happening in my life now, rather than what's not right, I was able to see the gifts in those situations, and it feels so much more freeing.
Right? And it'll always work out because it always has worked out. You can't see how it's going to work out, and you wish you could see how it's going to work out. Right? You all wish you could see how it's going to work. You know why they put turns in roller coasters? So that you can't see what's going to come. You know why you climb that hill and all you see is the sky? Because you can't see the dip, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's what makes it fun.
It feels weird though to tell people things like, you create your own reality, or...
Good, don't tell them that.
Okay. Just be happy.
Here you are with a group of people who have intense limiting beliefs, right? Yeah. And then you say, guess what? You created this.
Yeah.
It's okay to say to people who think they're doing well, you created this. Yeah, I did. I'm great, right? But to say to people who think they're not doing well, you created this, right?
Yeah.
No, to say all you've done is believed some bullshit, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to teach you how not to believe that bullshit anymore. You create all of this, so it doesn't mean anything. Nothing means anything. Nothing has any meaning. Nothing is inherently good or bad, right or wrong. You give everything meaning, and you have choice over that. And in your choice of the meaning, in your acceptance that nothing means anything, you can be free to create whatever you want.
My husband and I, many years ago, we were renters and we wanted to be homeowners, but there were so many fears around being a homeowner and where are we going to get the money and who's going to give us a loan. And as I've started to feel worthy, of course people will approve the loan. Of course we'll be homeowners, and of course we are. And it's like that about everything. There's just, once you remove the fear, anything is possible.
If you can be, have, and do anything you want in this reality, then the belief that you cannot be, have, and do anything you want in this reality is what?
It's
simply limiting. And what is that based in?
But isn't it kind of true, though, that we either have love or health or wealth? I mean, when we're talking...
Is that true for you?
No. Okay,
is that true for you?
Okay, but do you have it all at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, all right, well, good, I'm glad. I'll follow in your footsteps.
If you are the creator of your reality, and you can create anything, why would you fear the loss of something? Because something new comes in.
That is true.
Briefly, how do you understand the law of attraction? What is that?
My definition is you attract what you think about, expect, and believe.
What you're focusing on, where your point of focus is, I imagine is kind of like a little pin tip. What you're thinking about is going to show up. It's kind of just manifesting it.
When you start focusing on something that you want to have happen, like an event, like you're going to you want to have something happen, and things start aligning to make that happen, even though there's going to be some challenges along the way, that things just start falling into place, that the alignment starts taking place. It's just like when somebody says, oh, I was in the groove, like if you're in a sports event and all of a sudden you like a basketball player will hit 3 or 4 shots in a row. That's the alignment that starts taking place, and that's becomes more natural as you really concentrate on actually you start developing ways of having more alignment all the time.
What you focus on, you get. So if you focus on what's wrong, you get more of what's wrong. If you focus what's on right, you get more of what's right.
My energy will bring me what I need or what I'm vibrating, good or bad. And I've had so many good experiences with my energy being focused in the right way, or allowing, being aligned to the right energy, that things unfold. And I wish more people knew about that.
Mm-hmm. The way that I understand it, these laws, so the law of attraction has gotten the most press, but it's the idea that there are just these inherent universal laws, not that it's even an ideology, but it's just kind of like gravity, and that there are certain things that just work certain ways, at least as far as we can tell. And so to me, it makes sense to me. I've seen evidence in my own life of the law of attraction essentially being like what you put out is what you get back. The type of energy that you are exuding or emitting is what is going to come back to you, what you will be a match to. If we're all just energy, which is another one of those terms that can have a lot of different uses for it, but at our core, we're just molecules or whatever it is bouncing off of one another, formed into bodies that we call ourselves. But so for me, the law of attraction is just the idea of the way the system works. It's like the code in the operating system, one chunk of it.
Everything's energy. So in a low vibration, you may be sad or depressed or cranky. And to make yourself into a higher vibration, all you really have to do is put on music. For me, it's Uptown Funk. Listen to a guided meditation. I do Joshua meditations every morning. And I can raise my vibration so that I'm no longer in a funk. I'm in an Uptown Funk. No. I am happy. I am looking forward. I am enthusiastic. And all of those things are my vibration as an energy being, just being who I really am, my authentic self.
Our vibration is our essence. As far as that, my belief is, it's my essence. It's who I am. It's my energy. My energy. I believe we're all just energy, and my vibration represents my energy. I know with myself now, if I'm feeling negative or I'm feeling down or sad or whatever bad emotion I'm feeling at the moment, that's my indication that I'm not in alignment with my higher self. And again, if I can slightly turn my cheek and look at a different perspective, then I can raise my vibration. One thing that I never really understood is I thought, well, if my vibration is really low, why can't I just, go super high? Well, it's energy, and I kind of look at it like an engine warming up. So if I'm depressed, maybe I can get up to angry. And then if I'm angry, maybe I can get up to pissed off, or if I'm pissed off, maybe I can get up to resentful, and slowly climb myself back up to a higher vibration. And to me, I like the methodology of that, where it's a system.
So for me, the idea of raising my vibration is doing what feels good. And again, not in a just throw everything to the wind, what feels good kind of way, but who am I? What do I want? Who do I want to be? And who am I being? Who do I want to be? Who am I being? And where's the gap between the two? And so being honest with myself, and then celebrating the ways that I am accomplishing that. I mean, celebrating anything. That's the easiest way for me to raise my vibration. Is I've practiced finding any excuse to get excited, watching, if I see two people hug, two strangers that I don't know, I experience the hug as if I was them. That raises my vibration, which to me just means I see their joy, I live their joy as if it were my own, and then I feel better inside, and then I have a smile on my face, and then it's easier for me to react when somebody comes up and says something that I don't like, because I just soaked up this little bit of joy over here. So I just kind of attempt to live my life doing that as much as possible, and that's how I raise my vibration.
When I'm feeling good and I'm realizing I'm connected to everyone and I'm feeling love for everyone, then I don't analyze it, but I just know that my vibration's raising. And when I'm in fear and feeling a negative emotion like sadness or anger or doubt, I don't feel connected to everyone, and I feel disconnected. And I would say that, but the thing is about vibration, it's just a word. We're all energy, that's all we are. Everything is energy anyway. I think it's just concentrating on feeling good. And when I'm feeling good, I think that my vibration is raising.
One way of doing it is inspiration, and the other way is motivation. The motivation is, I gotta get this thing done to prove I'm good, or to make money, or to survive, or to keep this career going, or whatever it is. It's always that treadmill of effort. The other way is fun, enjoyable, blissful, challenging, exciting, all that. So you have these two choices.
Years later, I decided I wanted another boat, and I started deciding I wanted a Phoenix, and I found one, the similar one that we got married on. It was just because I decided that we wanted to have something that we shared in the past. And I noticed that happens a couple of times. If we go out looking for real estate, and we start looking for it, and
From
we have a certain
inspiration.
from inspiration, then all of a sudden we find what we want, even though at first we might not think it is, but eventually we find out that's exactly what it is.
We act on inspiration, not on we have to do something, or this is the right way to do something. If we inspire to do something, we do it and it works out great.
The inspiration can be a whisper. I mean, just a little tiny, like a nuance almost. Like you get a quick fleeting thought and it's like, look over there or pick up the phone or whatever it might be. And if you can we talked about that today as a matter of fact, if you can just look at that inspiration for what it is and take that first step. It may not be the end all, it may not be the path you're going to eventually take, but it takes you again to that direction. And from that point, when you've got that inspiration to look over here, well, maybe you see a sign or you see a person or you see a car drive by. Okay, that too could not be the final end, but maybe it's a blue car and blue reminds you of your mom and you think, oh, I should call my mom. Well, it's just, you kind of just pull on that thread, as Joshua says, until you get to what it is you've been inspired to do.
That one little simple idea that I had has led to this. And if I wouldn't have followed through on that one little teeny tiny thing, I wouldn't have had this really big thing. Such as law of attraction. Ooh, let me see if I can find any podcasts. And here I am.
Right. In Vegas.
Yeah, yeah.
We talk a lot about alignment. And what alignment is that those times when you're agreeing with your inner self, those times when you're feeling good. This is a feeling reality. All we're doing right now is feeling something. I'm feeling interested talking about this. I'm feeling enthusiastic and excited talking about it. So in this happy, satisfied feeling, I'm fully aligned with my inner self right now. And so that these words I'm saying flow. I'm not stammering too much and I'm not saying and ah. I'm not searching for words with too much difficulty. Now, let's imagine that we were on 60 Minutes and we were having this interview with, Dan Rather or somebody. I would be a little nervous, right? And I'm thinking, oh my God, this better go well. And I have a little fear, and that fear is below that line. And so the inspiration to speak and for those words to come is cut off to a bit. And I might say things I later regret, or I might get myself in trouble, or I might, say the things I didn't mean to say. And then after this is over, when I'm feeling good again, I'll look back and go, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. And so that's what inspiration is. Inspiration is these thoughts that come clearly from the non-physical to you during those times when you're feeling good. And in those times when you're nervous or agitated or in any kind of fear, you just cut off that inspiration. So that goes back again to inspiration versus motivation. So we'll say that inspiration comes from the non-physical through you, and motivation is stuff you think you have to do to get what you think done. And a lot of that motivation is effort, and a lot of that inspiration is easy and fun. Okay, so when you get an inspiring idea, when you're in alignment and feeling good, and you get the idea to call your mother, right? And you're like, oh yeah, I should call my mother. And then you think, she may not answer, she may be doing something else, I may be stuck on the phone for half an hour, she might bring up something from the past that will make me feel bad. So whenever you feel inspiration, whenever you receive an inspiring idea, you're likely to receive fear as well that accompanies it. And if the idea is exciting enough to you, you'll push past the fear. But if the fear is bigger than the idea, you'll limit yourself. You'll limit yourself from acting. Well, the inspiration is that thing that will best move you towards where you want to go in that moment. It's this idea that serves you and serves everyone else. But fear is always going to pop up. What we're doing now is learning how to push past that fear, to do this right now, to talk to you. Sure, there's fear about this. There's fear about, how I am being presented and how I come across and things like that. But it's such an exciting idea that I pushed past that fear. We're here in Las Vegas at a Joshua Land Cruise. We have a bunch of people who came from all over the country, all over the world, to join us here for this 5 days in the sun. And we're having a really fun time. But prior to setting all this up, we had to push past the fear of the money, the time, the who would come, things like that. All the marketing and advertising and coordination and reserving the rooms and all the delegation, things like that. So we said, this idea is fun enough that we're gonna push past that fear and move forward. And that's what we did. And turns out this is one of the most fun things I've ever done.
Excellent. All I heard is I'm not Dan Rather.
Which is good. You don't want to be Dan Rather.
The abundance is probably one of the most challenging thing for me, because we've been trained to, or I've been trained to see abundance as a number or an amount. And once I have that amount, or if I don't have that amount, I don't have enough. And if I can get that amount, then I can have everything I want. And now when I think of abundance, it really is the idea of having what you need in the now, having what you need when you need it. And I have really seen that come into play. Essentially everything that I needed in the now, I have it.
Joshua used to tell me all that. You'll always have what you want, what you need when you need it. And my rebuttal back to that was, I want what I want when I want it. It's like, I want this. And the more I got into the whole program and everything, I realized that what I thought I wanted and what I really want are two different things. And by just having that shift in my perception and allowing myself to know that I will always have whatever I need when I need it, it has opened me up to allow more abundance. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but by being able to be okay and know that I am always gonna have whatever I need when I need it, it takes the stress off, the pressure off, and I'm able to go and take more of a risk, if you will, trying new things and doing new things and new approaches.
But while abundance isn't strictly about money, it does seem that utilizing these law of attraction tools does at times, and with the right kind of focus, bring about monetary gain.
Since we have been following the teachings of Joshua, our abundance in the real world also has quadrupled.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
I was just saying, we made more money in this first quarter than we did in the last 2 years. So money is coming in. We're working not as hard, I don't think.
No,
do you think?
No.
We're not working as hard, but the abundance is just pouring in for us, and we've stopped worrying about money. That's the thing. We kind of stopped worrying about money before all the money was coming in, didn't we?
Well, having the money helps.
Yes, having the money helps. But after the teachings of Joshua, we just feel like the abundance in our life in all areas is upgraded.
What's interesting about the law of attraction is that really you can't be watching this until you've reached some kind of vicinity, vibrational vicinity of where this information exists, right? Most people in the world will never watch this video. But if you're watching it right now, it's because there's something about you that is attracting it. Now, you might be attracting it as a skeptic because you're looking at all these things and disbelieving certain things, but you might be looking at it as a way to enhance your life or change your life or whatever. So there's a lot of things you can do. You could listen to the podcast. There's 2 podcasts. You can find them anywhere, iTunes, wherever. It's the Teachings of Joshua Roundtable, where we talk about different aspects of these teachings. And it's Joshua Live, where I'm actually physically channeling Joshua. I'm speaking through Joshua through me. You can get a book, Amazon. That's the first book, A Perception of Reality, and this is the third book, which is A Radical Change in Your Approach to Life. You can go to the website, theteachingsofjoshua.com. You can read questions that other people have sent in. And you can go to Facebook and look for us on Facebook. But however you get in, you can only go as far as your interests will allow you to go anyway. So don't worry about it. There's nothing to risk. It's the easy thing to do. If it's interesting, it's interesting. If it's not, you're not ready. That's all it is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So here I am, days later. The retreat has ended, the sessions have been held, the conversations have taken place, the karaoke has been sung. What do I now think about the teachings of Joshua after having experienced it firsthand? Do I believe Gary is actually channeling a group of non-physical beings? Could it be explained another way? To be totally honest, the natural skeptic in me is still not sure. But one thing is for sure. Regardless of the manner in which these teachings are received and transmitted, they stand on their own. These people's lives have been expanded into greater joy, greater freedom, greater love because of the teachings of Joshua. These principles, properly studied and applied, have the potential to positively affect people's lives. In that case, count me in.
What's the benefit of seeing yourself from a new perspective? Well, you can lighten up a little bit. And if you lighten up a little bit, then this becomes more fun.